Welcome everyone to the February 27th Barrington Select Board meeting. I'll call the meeting to order and we'll have a roll call of those present.
Joyce Capiello.
George Bailey.
Dan Manstrek. We have
Sakosha.
Mr. Sakosha. Are you there, Jim?
Yeah, I'm online.
I hear 1 second, Jim. Can't hear you. I'm just gonna check one thing. All right, try again, Jim.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Very good. Thank you.
Sakosha here.
And thank you. Thank you, Jim. And Mr. Gibson is asked to be excused for this meeting. I would ask you all to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, we had a chance to look through the agenda.
Yep.
Any concerns, objections?
I would just housekeeping things, the
Yes.
link in the PA report was broken for the housing opportunity planning grant. And for the appointments, the link to Bob Tessier didn't have his application if it's someone else's.
Oh, great. The housing master plan, that was updated earlier today. Good catch. Thank you for that. And I'll update Bob Tessier's for next week's meeting. Thank you.
Motion to approve the agenda with exception.
I second it.
Okay, well, all in favor?
You gotta do-
Three.
Roll call every vote because Jim's virtual.
Okay.
Sakosha, aye.
Capiello here.
Bailey,
I
Manstrek, aye. Sakosha, I heard aye.
Yep.
Very good. All right. Any public comment? I would remind people that, public comment is open for 3 minutes. Please state your name and address. I'm going to read again. Visitors should not expect a response to their comments or questions since the select board may not have discussed or taken a position on the matter. Public comment is not a two-way dialogue between the speaker, select board, and or the town administrator. Are there any public comments?
If you're participating virtually,
Mr. Air?
Danny Lane from 34 Old Compton, everybody. I'm having a problem understanding all this stuff. I want to vote on and stuff, long-term effects on and stuff, with my own personal thoughts and stuff. And we have all these rules and regulations in town, we don't seem to be following. And I don't understand why the select board, planning board, everything has relied on lawyers. So, to make decisions. We have staff and stuff that getting paid a good dollar for decisions to make and stuff. But we're all gonna put it, might feel like we put off on the volunteers and legal or professionals. And the expense, they calling us. And there's so many things that are approved projects and stuff in the past have not got completed when I was a selectman and stuff. And then now moving off to other stuff, the accountability, the money and stuff, these false hopes and stuff. I have a problem in seeing the future. I have health problems. I'm trying to get everything out there and put everything in line, find out there how to survive. And there's a lot of unforeseen answers. And every action is their reaction. Try to figure out the outcome. And hopefully in time, I can. Thank you.
Any other comments from anyone present? If you're, Mr. Bailey. please.
I have a comment. I'd just like to pass the word along with Connor through you. With your approval is that again, our DPW showed what it's like to remove snow from the roads. Shortly thereafter, I went out early and just a couple of the other towns because I had business to take care of, and I'll tell you, it was a mess. So if you'll just pass that on, I'd appreciate it.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other comments from people present? You're online virtually. If you have public comment, if you'll please, if you're on Teams, if you'll press the raise hand item to be recognized. If you're on telephone, *6 and wait to be recognized.
Anything virtually, Mr. Chair?
I see nothing virtually either. In that case, we'll close the public comment. Public hearings, we've invited a couple of guests with us, Mr. McGlaris, or
Not here yet. Maybe we'll start with Representative Levesque.
Ms. Levesque, our one of our state representatives.
Good evening.
And thank you, Cassie.
Appreciate it.
You have, you want us to ask questions first, or do you want to make a little presentation of what's going on from your standpoint?
Yeah, so when it comes to the state house, we just met recently. We passed a lot of bills, so they're on to the Senate right now, or they've but still, depending on how the committee voted, a lot of bills are being retained just so that way we can look at it further. So we'll be working on those in the fall. And as of the Stratford County, a lot of the subcommittees are meeting now. The General Court Subcommittee, which I am on, has met recently, and we just about the budget of any of the organizations / businesses that we work with, Meals on Wheels, Coast Buses, and they give us what an increase. Most of them haven't. It's any of them that are dealing with food and products, things like that. They've asked for an increase in budget, maybe like $30 or $100, depending on what they need. Meals on Wheels asked for more than last year. They're asking for $42,000 just because of how much food is costing. Coast is having a hard time getting drivers because the CDL license, there's new requirements that's a little bit harder, and it's very expensive to get a CDL license. Yeah, any questions you have for me?
NHMA suggested there are two bills of concern that we have supported, that NHMA has supported, that I think will pertain to us particularly. One is a payment of the state portion of the retirement system for employees such as police, teachers, and firefighters. I think that would be a very useful bill. I don't know if you've seen that, or I don't have the number off the top of my head.
There's two, Senate Bill 114 and House Bill 50.
Yeah.
Similar goals, but different approaches.
I looked at that one. The state would pay $92.5 to the state fund. So that'll take a lot of weight off of the municipality, so that way they don't have to pay as much, and it's related to the property taxes too. House Bill 50, I haven't been to look at that full bill, but like Connor said, that it's two bills trying to do the same thing, just in different ways. We've been seeing a lot of that from the state and the House. But it depends on negotiations between the leaderships in both houses and what they decide which bill they want to see go through. And which one does the more good, or if we can combine them to see if we can push those through. So I definitely want to see that happen.
Yeah, that would be very helpful for us. Obviously, it would take a little pressure off. Appreciate that. There are other bills coming up.
No other bills now.
There are a few others that we've been following
Right.
relative to retirement. One of the things I think is really important for everybody to keep in mind discussing New Hampshire retirement and the employer contribution. Right now, we pay 33% of a police officer and firefighter's full-time wages into New Hampshire retirement. And that's one of the reasons that we're not able to pay as high for police officers and firefighters. And it's tough because we hire a new officer and we look and say, hey, we'll pay you $20-something an hour. But hey, we're putting 33% into New Hampshire retirement. The problem with that is 80% of what the town pays into New Hampshire retirement goes to pay off the unfunded liability from people who are already retired or are in the system invested. And so the lion's share of what we're paying doesn't even go towards the benefits of the people that we're paying in on their behalf. So it cripples municipalities, and this isn't unique to Barrington, but it cripples our ability to pay competitive wages. I say competitive with the private sector, especially when we have to pay so much on their behalf into New Hampshire retirement that isn't going to benefit them. They don't have a medical subsidy anymore. The benefits are a lot less than they used to be. And there's no easy solution, and people a lot smarter than me have been working to fix it for a long time. But I think that one point is really important to keep in mind for municipalities. And I think that's one of the reasons that there's a lot of momentum now to reinstitute a state subsidy of the employer share, recognizing that it's not the town of Barrington's fault that there's an unfunded liability that's so big. So I think that's an important point, and I'd encourage you to think of that and go back to the State House. We followed a couple of bills relative to virtual meetings. I know there's been some action. What do you know, or what's your position about those types of bills?
Just clarifies it more into the RSA and puts it into law, so that way there's a clear defined legislation and language into the RSA, so that way we have a law now that specifically says what you have to do in a meeting, especially when we have virtual meetings now. And this way it gives a clear defined what you can do, how to proceed with virtual meetings. So, and it is a bipartisan bill
Right.
in the Senate. And there's one representative on that, but it's all bipartisan. So I see a lot of that going through the House with support. So
You want that too for the House meeting too, isn't it?
yeah,
And that part of it.
Yeah.
Part of it'll be virtual there as well.
yeah. And the Stratford County allows virtual for members to be on virtually and to be able to vote virtually too.
And tonight's a perfect example, right? I called the three of you when I heard Jim wasn't going to be able to make it in person because the statute as it exists now allows us to have virtual participation, but a quorum has to be physically present. And so if one of you weren't able to make it tonight, we would have had to cancel the meeting. Whereas the legislation that's being contemplated would allow, with some restrictions, there still has to be a physical meeting space. You still have to have contemporaneous communication, but would allow meetings to go on. Select board is important, but land use boards, it's of even higher importance, I would say, because the consequences for the postings, and you have the applicants and the engineers that show up. And so added flexibility for sure.
Anything else?
Question. So there's been lots of chatter in this town about signage and what kind of restrictions towns can do. And, our two major highways are state, so we don't have any control over those. I think you got an email from a member of the planning board about what a state law could look like on signage, or what state law just allowing towns to set some standards.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to see if there is a state law, but most likely it would. I'm seeing possibly something allowing for representative race, the state races being like 60 days, and maybe for like town like 30 days allowed out. I know that I'm on a bill that would allow only members of that party or like committee of that party to be able to take someone's sign. But I know that there's some talk about like signage and wise of how long. I know that Representative Howard is looking at putting in a bill with some Republicans about like how long you can have it out. And I can definitely discuss like what he's looking at more. He's having discussions with other representatives to have future legislation about that. So.
Thank you. On that same subject, I know that you're aware, but I just would like to put it up for the public, is the fact that town officials do not have to declare their party affiliation before they go there. So I hope that when consideration is there for the amount of time and everything else, it's not just set for one party member can remove the signs for that particular party because of the fact that, well, we don't have to declare. So I hope you take that into consideration or at least mention it to somebody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just looked at the, language of it,
Mhm.
recently, just to get it fresh in my mind. As long as, I believe as long as you say I'm with this person's campaign, then that's okay. They have to like ask the candidate, like, is this person with your campaign? Is this a supporter of yours? You know, they're, I think it's mainly just for the, state
I
races.
hope so.
Yeah.
So I understand with the town and municipalities, it's a little bit harder because you guys are all bipartisan, no political parties separately. So I think,
Because I know that once you start running for state house, you have to have all of these little things taken care of. It is who's responsible, the name on the sign,
yeah,
and who the treasurer is and everything else. And but with us, we just turn around and go down, get the signs and stick them in the ground and pick them up.
yeah,
So, yeah,
it's a little
thank you.
bit more restrictive
Yeah.
with the state.
I hope they don't make that part of the law.
Two other bills we've talked about. One is Senate Bill 222, and so that is especially topical to Barrington. It relaxes the bonding authority for broadband borrowing. So right now, there's a definition about underserved and unserved. You have to have a certain population that is unserved or underserved with broadband. The definition is 25 megabits per second download, 3 megabits per second upload. It's an outdated metric. And one of the things that this bill would do would expand that to allow a community that has that type of coverage to still be able to borrow at municipal rates for broadband infrastructure investments. So the Technology Committee in Barrington pursued almost a year-long process to figure out what our options were to improve broadband connectivity in Barrington. And unfortunately, there aren't a lot of options because we have good baseline connectivity. The problem is with people working from home, doing school from home, that baseline isn't good enough. And the legislation at the state level right now limits the ability to borrow and make investments in the broadband on a municipal level to that level, the 25/3. And so Senate Bill 222 is looking to expand that would allow a community like Barrington to borrow if we chose, and we being the voters. So that's an interesting one. And you can comment on if you want. I just mentioned the other one is House Bill 270, and that's co-sponsored by two Barrington representatives relative to the election of county commissioners in Stratford County. So interested in your thoughts on that one for sure.
I definitely support anything expanding broadband, especially when we have such a broad state where not everybody can get a connection. And with times being like everybody's online, either remote or working from home, there's a lot of businesses now that allows people to work from home more often. And I think that expanding that broadband is definitely helpful for those that, you know, want to join meetings from home or anything like that. So I always support that.
Great.
And what was the other?
Election of county commissioners, right now they're at large. The proposal would be to have districts within Stratford County and elected from districts. From what I've read, the justification seems to be because Barrington or Stratford County is one of the only counties that elects at-large commissioners versus commissioners that represent a specific district.
That was who I was brought to the commissioners. I would have to ask them about like what they see about it and what they think. And also, you know, I think that it depends on like, I'd have to look at the legislation too.
Absolutely.
One of our concerns that you can bring forward from town is that because Dover and Rochester have such a large population, the commissioners tend to be only from those two areas. And while they represent the whole county, their perspective is from Rochester and Dover, and the rest of the county, smaller communities, usually doesn't have a representative as such. So from our standpoint, I think this is a very useful concept. They may not agree,
Yeah.
but certainly from the town's perspective, I think it would be important to pass that legislation.
Yeah, I've heard some back and forth, you know, depending on.
Understand, you're the,
Yeah, some people are just like, yeah, we need more, especially for the smaller towns, as you get into it, not everybody's gonna be from Rochester or Dover or Somersworth, and it's a little bit different when it comes to what's going on in there. And different perspectives is always great, you know, so I always support that, but I definitely would have to like see what others think about it, just to get some more opinions before I like, make a decision.
understand.
Yeah, because another thought on that is that, you remember several years back, they made that change of the state rep. Because of they all were coming from one particular area, and somebody that lived up in one of the smaller towns, they didn't have any representation, so now the changes that have been made have made it, but I feel has made it a little bit more equitable for everybody, so if something on that line, if you could consider it, I'm not, just maybe talking up with other people too, to do something similar to that would make it a lot easier to go along with what we feel that way.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Great.
You've heard our opinions.
I have one more.
Yes, please. Oh, sorry, George.
I have one more that I was saying to the end. I'm kind of jealous on this one here. And as you know, we have several states that are surrounding us that have gone ahead and built a casino, which gives them considerable amount of money, tax money, for people that go there. Right now, most of the people go around to these surrounding states and take their hard-earned money and try to make some more money with it. And whenever the bill seems to come before Concord, and it's always defeated because they have some other rules and what have you. I would just ask that if they ever come up with a consideration is that you can build a casino, and if the casino fails, it's still paying tax on the building. So either way, we still have a win-win situation. So I would just like to say that I would ask you to consider a positive vote if it ever comes up again. So that way it will help increase the taxes that the state collects. And it'll help probably lower the property tax for the rest of us in the part of the state. If you could do that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah.
That was not a. But that's just the way I feel.
Okay.
And I am one of the ones that go out of state, so.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Is there a bill up this year?
I don't know. I haven't heard anything or anything else of that nature.
Marijuana is the big one this year. Marijuana is the big fringe hobby that people are, paying attention to in Concord right now.
Children Family Law Committee, so trying to basically help reform almost the family court system, because a lot of it is very much backed up, and there's a lot of people that are getting overlooked when they shouldn't be. And so trying to fix that is definitely in the process. We have retained some bills that we're hoping to look at further and discuss further, so that way we can see what's going on and discuss it. There was a bill to have a committee come together with all of the big heads from DHHS, DCYF, a lot of the organizations that we all see, plus members of the public and some state representatives come together and discuss what's going on at the family court system and see what we can do to help. So, and that bill is coming up for the executive hearing. And so I know that we definitely support that, because we want to see what's going on. We have a lot of family coming up and saying, look, our court cases are being sent to the Supreme Court because our judges ruled unfairly. What's going on? And we have a lot of kids. And we're also looking at the Sununu Center, of course, trying to fix all of those issues. We just have Senate Bill 1 that's coming up. We believe that it's coming, it should be in the House Finance Committee. So they're going to take a look at that. We also had one on the House side that we deemed to retain to see how the Senate bill does. And if that one fails, then we still have this one to bring up. So at least we're doing a little bit, just something. And with the House bill, it increases to 18 beds. It gives a facility, it's more of a home feel versus what it is now, which is a prison. There's definitely more rooms there, and it's not like steel doors in between. It's more like a home away from home. There's rec areas, and right now I talked to someone from DCYF and they said that they have rooms and parts of the building that they are using right now because they no longer have funding for those. And a lot of them are for building careers and helping the students rehabilitate or the kids rehabilitate into society a little bit more versus straight prison or anything like that. So, and this way it becomes a little bit less of sheriffs and police officers coming daily versus having them just stop by when needed, when they're called. So, yeah.
Both of those require money, right?
Yes.
And
So
select
the
person
Executive committee.
Sakosha had raised his hand.
Mr. Scotia, please.
Yes, are you, I'm pretty sure because I got a call to look at a job. I'm pretty sure the state has like plans for not like a large casino, but they were talking about doing one over in the Kmart Plaza over in Rochester, and I think there's a couple down in Seabrook. But I guess the casinos are geared towards helping charities out in New Hampshire. Do you know anything about that?
I don't.
That's just it. It's almost like it's an expansion of the like bingo for charity. It's kind of under the same authority, but there's a poker room over at Dover Bowl. There's the I think they have expanded casino options down in Hampton, and so yeah, under that narrow focus. And I'm not familiar with all the restrictions, but there is casino game play in New Hampshire. But I think because of the status of those organizations, probably not a source of revenue for the communities or the state, but probably mostly directed at the charities that are the recipients.
Yep, no, I was just asking her, so.
Depending on like state law and everything and how the charities have to follow it, they probably, it's mostly, like you said, geared towards going towards the charities versus the state. So.
Very good. Anything else, Jim?
Nope.
Thank you. Anything else? Anyone else? Questions, comments? Ms. Levesque, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being here. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
We have your number, so we can, yeah, as we always, but thank you very much for what you do.
Yeah.
For doing what you do. Thank you.
Yeah, and you can always email me or message me. And just if you have any questions about any legislature that's coming through, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
You're not,
Thanks for coming.
yeah.
So we'll have to look at scheduling with Commissioner McGlaris relative to the nursing home. I know he's eager to make a presentation, so
Okay,
I'll follow up with him after the meeting.
thank you. I don't see any school board representative. They had their deliberative session, and they proposed their budget without change, so we'll meet next week. Overlook Circle. As you know, we've there's a question about the viability of the road, although it seems to have survived very nicely. We've been instructed by the court to plow that road. And then, so we come to the point of whether we should accept that road. Any comments or questions from the board?
Maybe for the public's benefit, just to close the loop
Okay.
before further, if you want.
Yeah, please.
If you're interested. So last time the select board discussed this was a little over a year ago in February 2022. And so there had been a request by the developer for the select board to take over the road. And this was after a period of review and some concerns between the town and the developer, the original third-party engineer and an independent engineer the select board hired. And so at that time, the select board held a hearing and voted not to accept the road. Subsequent, the residents, who I think it's important to emphasize, are blameless in this whole process. Bought a house in a new development, and, hey, we're not going to have to be the ones to take care of our road. Got together and said, okay, this is unacceptable, and the developer of the town should be maintaining this road. It shouldn't be our responsibility. We shouldn't have to worry about it. So 2 claims were made in the courts, and the decision you referenced, Chairperson Manschreck, was a preliminary injunction where a judge reviewed the facts as they existed at the time and directed the town to maintain the road. One of the important pieces of that review was the judge's decision was that the town's agent, being the original third-party engineer, isn't blameless in the assumption by the developer that everything was okay and they could proceed without concern. Obviously, the borings that we took showed that there were some discrepancies, but what the judge said is that the original third-party engineer acting on behalf of the town maybe gave unfair representations or otherwise. I'm summarizing. The documents are on the town's website, linked in the town administrator report. And so we are now to maintain the road for this winter and consider proceeding with the court case, or as the select board has agreed to do, consider the acceptance again. So it's a public hearing. We'll open up to public comment before the select board makes a decision. But for the public's benefit, that's the juncture that we're at right now for the select board to consider. And so the statutory authority for the select board to consider accepting the road is RSA 674-40-A, paragraph 3. And so this is a planning board approved subdivision, which doesn't mean that the road will automatically become accepted, but gives the select board the authority to accept the road under those circumstances. And accepting the road means that the town accepts ownership and future maintenance responsibilities for the road. It turns the classification from private road, which it is now, to a class 5 road, which is maintained by the town. One other important note, and I know you mentioned it, Mr. Chair, but the road is holding up very well. There aren't any signs of, premature failure of the pavement, which was the concern that the select board had last year. It's now sat another winter, and the condition of the road hasn't deteriorated. That doesn't mean that it might not fail sooner than it would have, but certainly the deficiencies that were identified would have reasonably reared their head by now if they were to result in kind of catastrophic failure. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to give that update.
Okay. Now, any other questions or concerns from?
Well, I'd like to hear if there's public comment.
We'll do that too, but.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Was there any, I assume that some of you are here representing Overlook Circle? No? Very good. Mr. Aaron.
Daniel, 334 Old Concrete Turnpike. It's part of my frustration. We pay staff, we pay these people, the developers, they pay a thing, we think of quality things to be done. But it was overlooked. Our expression. Our rule, we have standards and codes and stuff, and then we're followed. And then I've come an eye on it. Quality work. They fought one down the binder and stuff. They did pavement, apparently there's anything wrong with pavement, moved down the coal, but the roller, automatic's not there. Is it holding up? I don't know, it seems to be. I haven't been up there lately, see if there's any cracks. But basically, why do we pay staff? Why do we have all these third parties, now we're using lawyers and engineers more? We're not even using them. We're using them, we're not relying on them. So that's what I'm saying. And all our designs and reviews, it's all in a book. Why is it not happening? But now you're gonna now do the Band-Aids up on rubber stamp this, say it's okay. What's stopping that, some of them? I take pride in my work and do pretty quality work and stuff, and I stand behind it. And that's the issue and stuff. What's the sense of doing a good job in Barrington that isn't allowed anyway? Why should I go the extra mile? Why? And then now, we're gonna bypass and stuff. There's something that happened in the planning board. I don't like, I've been speaking out, things happen to me personally, it's cost me personally a lot of money. The staff overlooked everything, now they wanna put rubber stamp it, look the other way. Where's it gonna stop and stuff? Whatever way you guys vote and stuff, you're gonna vote and stuff, because of the residents, but why do we have all these standards? They're not enforced. Thank you.
If you're participating virtually and you want to make a comment, you can raise your hand, or if you're on your phone, you can press *6. Speak up just to let us know that you're interested in making a comment, and then wait to be recognized by the chair. Jason Dennis has his hand up, Mr. Chair.
Dennis? Please
Unmute yourself first.
unmute yourself. We can't hear you, sorry.
Sorry about that. Jason Dennis, I actually am the attorney that represents the individuals at Overlook Circle. And so I'm not going to make any extensive public comment, but I just wanted to let you know that I was here in case there were any questions of me. I would state simply that the court has ordered the town, as I believe Mr. McIver has stated, to take care of the road for this winter based on its preliminary finding of responsibility for the road. And so I think part of the reason we are here today is because of that order. And ultimately, I would say it's the town's prerogative to make the decision on whether to read the tea leaves in that order or to continue on with the case. I believe that order suggests that ultimately in the end, and of course, obviously it could be fully litigated and a judge make a different decision. But I believe that the decision that's been made at this point so far, it gives some indication that the petition to lay out the road would meet with a substantial likelihood of, in fact, that's the requirement for an injunction, a substantial likelihood of success on the merits, meaning that the court would order that the road be laid out as a public road. So that's all I'll say. I obviously didn't come here to make a presentation in any particular way. But since I was here, I did just want to let the board know that certainly I was here on behalf of the residents on Overlook Circle. So thank you for the time.
Could I ask you a question, sir? Do you have a sense of when the judge will make a final decision on this?
So as of now, not at all, because we haven't had the hearing yet. So we had the preliminary hearing, and we would have a final hearing that was scheduled to take place March 1st, but given the fact that this meeting was happening this evening, that has been continued. Obviously, no point in having a hearing if, in the event that the town were to accept the road, it would be a waste of everybody's time and money. And I don't think anybody would want to show up for court just for that purpose. So it would be sometime after a hearing, a final hearing. So we had the preliminary hearing. We'd have a final hearing where it would be able to be fully argued by myself on behalf of the homeowners and by the town or counsel for the town, whoever that may be. And then the judge would make a decision sometime after that, which would hopefully be soon. They do tend to have municipal matters kind of move a little bit quickly, but all courts are busy, and it could be 30 days or 60 days or longer, quite honestly. So it could be a week. And I apologize that I can't provide that answer with any clarity other than to state simply, the final hearing hasn't occurred yet. And so it would be sometime after that, which would potentially be late April or May.
Thank you. That I understand you're not in charge of that.
No, final thing I would comment is there is not a new date, I don't believe as of yet, to take the place of the March 1st date that the court sort of moved partially to allow the town to have the first crack at the decision.
Thank you.
I
You're
see
welcome.
there's somebody participating on a phone that's unmuted themselves. I don't know if that's because they're interested in making a comment. But if your phone number ends in 2162 and you're interested in making a comment, now would be a good time. And don't forget, you'll have to unmute your phone also. The Teams unmute is different than the phone unmute. Or if you're not interested in making a comment, that's okay also. Don't see any further activity online, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you.
So I want to just summarize my understanding.
Close the public hearing if you want,
Well,
if you're at that time.
Do you want to close the public?
I think there appear to be no other comments, so we'll now go back to the.
So we have documentation that the road was not built to standards through the boring reports.
Right,
The town engineer at that time did not convey that information clearly to the developer, the paver, and the residents. And now the court has initially ruled against the town.
that's correct. And again, we ought to reiterate that the people who bought their houses in Overlook Circle are not at all responsible for
Correct.
for that. This is not against them. It's the developer and the people who put down the road.
And I think an important step further from that is when the town did become aware that there were concerns with the third-party engineer acting as an agent of the town, authorizing work or miscommunicating for different aspects. The town moved on from that engineering firm, went through a process, selected a separate third-party engineer through a comprehensive process. And that certainly doesn't absolve the fact that, you know, this situation occurred, but that's, you know, a step that this board could take and did take at the time, recognizing the concern.
So to the best of our ability, we're trying to make sure this does not happen again.
Precisely.
So it comes down to this point of whether we should accept the road or not. And go on with the legal process to have the judge finally tell us whether to do it or not.
Well, I have a difficult decision to make. That is, we all know that come March will be the end of my term as on this select board. And making such a decision about this, as I had already voted once already, being asked to vote again on something that I won't be responsible for in the decision-making side. Well, I know you understand that. And it's awful difficult to do that and then turn around and step down and say, well, I have nothing to do with it. So I just feel that we've done everything. As you know, I've made it clear that I don't agree with the decisions that I've made so far, and I just have a lot of difficulty with it. So I'm making that point known right now.
Although we continue to be responsible for maintaining.
Yes, we are.
So-
We are.
So the people in Overlook Circle won't have to.
That's
suffer,
That's right. Is there a sunset clause on that from the court?
It was this winter. The sunset for the preliminary injunction decision was this winter. The one winter, the winter that we're in.
Oh, no, I didn't say that at all. No. I just said I have difficulty voting because of the fact in the second Tuesday in March, I will no longer be a select board member, and I will be putting this, no matter how, whichever way I do vote, on the new board to turn around and adopt it. And I've already voted once, everybody's aware of, not to accept. It's hard to make a decision when you have reasonable information in front of you that sustains my vote that I made the last time. And then that's what I have. But that's why, one of the reasons I asked about the sunset clause.
well, at least it'll, yeah.
Yeah.
The rest of the winter,
Well, I don't want to jeopardize anybody's safety at all. That's why I asked that question.
Okay, but again, for those, we are certainly concerned about the citizens in Overlook. The question is whether the whole town ought to be responsible for maintaining a road that may not sustain itself as we would hope. Through, again, no fault of anyone's, other than the developer and the engineers, or the people who put it in, and the third-party engineers who didn't do a thorough job in their investigation. So we now come to vote to accept or not to accept at this point.
Yeah, it's a difficult decision to make. I think if the town was very clear in all of their actions, I would feel better about continuing the games. But I think I would vote to accept the road.
Okay, we need a
I
motion.
don't know that
to
we
do
have a strong lawsuit.
That's right. We need a motion. That's the other point. If we accept the road, then you get to quit and our lawyer gets to quit. We don't have to pay any of that, so for further extra fund. So
We
are you
stress,
approved?
we stress that to the people that, you know, and it's just, you know, like it was mentioned, it was an unfortunate event. But you know, what's going to happen, it's legal on both sides and, you know, we're still maintaining the road, as is, but you know, it's a difficult decision and, you know, we're making, progress, so that this doesn't happen again. And it's kind of like, you know, we either take it now or it's going to cost the town a lot more money to go ahead and try and pursue this in court.
Okay, so what I need is a motion to accept, or then we'll vote. So would someone like to make that motion other than me?
I'll make a motion to accept, the road at Overlook Circle.
Thank you, Mr. Sakosha. It's seconded by Ms. Campiello. I would point out that, yes, it is a difficult decision. That's why we get paid the big bucks. To make those difficult decisions. Any other comments from the board? We'll roll call vote. Mr. Sakosha,
Sakosha, aye.
Ms. Capiello,
Aye.
Mr. Bailey,
With regret, aye.
and Shrek, aye. So we will accept that. Thank you for your comments, Mr. I'm sorry,
Dennis.
Yes, sorry, pardon me, sorry. Okay, all right, moving on. Building permit on Rocky Point Road. Recommending the waivers.
So you'll see the packet and summarized in my town administrator report. The comments are strikingly similar to the last application for a private road building permit on Rocky Point Road. Meet these folks real quick. That the road's in good shape and more damage would be done, more harm than good would be done with trying to expand the road given the constraints that exist. I think is a fair summary of them.
Yeah.
Planning board did review this as well and does support this application.
So we need a motion to accept or to issue a building permit on Rocky Point Road, a private road, the old.
And public comment first, Mr. Chair.
Yep, I was, oh, well, we can have public comment or the motion. Okay, public comment, any public comment? See none here. Anything online? By telephone?
I see somebody's unmuted themselves. If your phone number ends in 9076 and you're looking to make comment on the issuance of a building permit on Rocky Point Road, now's a good time to speak up.
No, pass.
I'm just going to mute you.
Any other comments? Now we need a motion.
I move that we accept, this applicant moving forward, on map 18, lot 11 and 21 Rocky Point Road.
Issue a
Support
building
their
permit.
application.
Issue the building permit.
Can we make sure that that's an approval of the waiver request for just the requirements of section 3, little c, Roman numeral 7, paragraph 4 of the policy and authorize the issuance of the permit? I have the motion drafted in my town administrator report. Yeah. Just because that's what they're asking for. They're asking for a waiver of that one specific provision, and they've proposed to comply with the rest of it. So if that was your intent, you can say so moved.
So moved.
Perfect. I don't know who was the
Second.
second, but
I don't have a second. yet.
okay.
Anybody like to second Capiello's motion? Yes, I can do that. Can I?
Mhm.
I think I'll second that motion. Any other discussion?
Please.
Yes, sir.
It really bothers me to, how many other people on the road have agreed to, the standards being waived for that section? Have we taken a vote on the other people there that are on the road?
I think the best information we have from that are in your packet. You have a letter signed by, it almost looks like 24 of the residents of Rocky Point Road, representing the neighborhood association, who have written a letter in support. So we don't typically have that, but in this case, we have that. Yeah.
You know, when it was.
I saw that, but I think what George's concern is, people are there now, but, down the road, 40, 50 years, people move out and go elsewhere. And then we're still going to have a frustrated fire department and police department because, he can't get a big fire truck down there safely. So.
The fire chief and police chief and road agent all weighed in favorably.
Yeah, there.
Okay, did you close public comment?
Sorry?
Did you close public comment?
Well, no one commented, so yes, I didn't say we closed public comments. And when I asked if there was any further public comment, no one answered, so.
I'll explain my thinking, a bit. I mean, I'm in favor of applying our class 6 and private road standard. The problem we had with this and, planning board is that road is already paved. And there just is not a way to widen that road because of how it's been built up. So, there would have to be, I don't know how many houses are on that road, but quite a few, and they're not willing to give up, the right of way land, to widen that road. And we had an applicant in a similar situation on that road that come before planning board and select board, and we did approve that one. Because there just didn't seem to be other good, there just didn't seem to be alternatives to making it, wider.
Yeah, I think most of the improvements that would bring it closer to standard are on other people's property.
Move the motion, Mr. Chair.
All those in favor?
Aye.
It's
Scotia?
gotta be a roll call.
Yeah, Mr. Scotia
Sakosha, aye.
Happy to-
Ellie, aye.
and Shrek, aye. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. The other, there's an housing opportunity planning grant agreement, which dated 6 February. It's in your packet from Ms. Price. We need to have public hearing whether we should accept this $25,000 grant. It's through the Stratford Regional Planning, right?
No, it's through the state.
Okay.
We have proposed for the grant to be administered by Stratford Regional Planning Commission. So the goal, as outlined in the town planner's letter, is to use this grant to review the housing chapter of the master plan. So similar, we've partnered with Stratford Regional Planning with the land use and transportation chapters. We're updating this year. Transportation chapter is being updated on a grant. And then this grant would be proposed to update the housing and demographics chapter of the master plan.
Is there any public comment, reference this grant?
Yeah, so
But go ahead, wait, let's see
What's-
if there's any public comment, Jim. If we could first.
Yep, my bad.
No one here, no one's present, who's prepared to comment, apparently. Okay, anyone online would like to comment? Either on Teams or by telephone?
I don't see anything, Mr. Chair.
I see nothing else. Mr. Scotia, you had a comment.
Yeah, so that 25,000, at one, I think the housing in Barrington, I don't think it's, a huge part of our local town government, but what are they going to do with that $25,000? Is that going to studies? Is it going to mailers, or is it going to get information from other agencies on how to implement it better?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the letter from the town planner gives a good summary, but the full grant agreement is attached, so you can get into the weeds as much as you want. But most specifically, Barrington, by virtue of having a planning board, is required to have a master plan, and that master plan is required to be updated. And so Barrington's approach to updating the master plan is not to do the entire plan on a regular basis, but to split it up and do chapter by chapter updates. So Barrington has traditionally focused on 1 or 2 chapters a year to update them. So our most recent update to the housing and demographics chapter, which addresses what the town identifies as the plan as it relates to housing and demographics. It does just what you're talking about. It looks at data, it talks to residents. These chapters that we're updating right now have included a steering committee and listening sessions and a survey. Not saying this chapter will follow that same model, but it looks at that and gets a group of residents in a room to identify what the vision is, what the plan is for that chapter. And so we have to update the chapter anyways. This is an opportunity to have that update be grant funded, so we can have professionals working on looking at those specific items.
Much as we did the transportation this year.
Right. And so this is the money specifically comes through a pot of money as part of Governor Sununu's, what did he call it? The housing, Invest in H. So some of that money went directly to developers, and certain money was made available for purposes like this. And that was what the grant was pursued through. And we have received the grant pending the select board's acceptance.
Awesome. Just wanted to get that out there for the people.
Absolutely. No, it's a great question.
I would like.
Oh, okay. Mr. Grant would like to comment, please. Can you come up so we can record that, please?
So on this public grant, my interest to know would be if you accept that grant and you're accepting it from the state, I assume, and not the federal government, but even from the state, how does that tie them into making decisions or a requirement for you to consider whatever the state wants in that master plan? Are they, in other words, are they there giving instructions and you've got to sort of acquiesce to those instructions?
It's a great question. I'm happy to answer if the board like.
Please.
So the first and foremost, Barrington's master plan is just that, Barrington's master plan, period. The the planning board has the say, the planning board adopts the chapter. The components of this grant program, which address, I think, the concerns you might have, are the state program, this Invest NH, is focused on a multifaceted approach to solving the housing concerns people have in New Hampshire. Part of it is what they've called a housing academy. Is that what it was called, Joyce? Housing Academy, but it's trainings that the state is sponsoring, organizing to discuss the topics that they've identified or of importance to them. So one grant requirement would be that members of the committee attend the Housing Academy to hear the information presented by the state. But again, the Barrington's master plan chapter on housing is Barrington's master plan chapter on housing, period. Nobody will tell Barrington what needs to be in it. From a higher level, it's the local authority remains.
But one of the contentious issues that are that I see, and I wonder if there could be involved here, is this business about the state or the government, some government requiring this town to be forced to make adequate, affordable housing. Some call it workforce housing, but then the bigger issue is the planning and the zoning issues where multi occupancy, multi-family housing could go into private developments. The government wants to force that upon private communities and private citizens like ourselves.
So the planning board actually had, some members had similar concerns to what you had. When we looked at this, we decided that this grant money could really be focused on Barrington's updating their housing list, and that we would very carefully look at any future grants because of concern about whether.
What we don't want somebody come in and deciding what our rights can be as citizens in a town owning property, and somebody else determining what we can.
Right, this will allow
have
Barrington.
Cluster housing or multi-family housing or anything like that.
Yeah, this, I think, will allow Barrington to figure out what Barrington residents want around workforce housing and other kinds of housing.
Okay, thank you.
And I think something important for the board to keep in mind and monitor, and we can ask our state representatives about these issues also, is there are plenty of attempts at the state level at statewide zoning. The town of Barrington is a member of the New Hampshire Municipal Association. One of the legislative policy positions of the Municipal Association is no statewide zoning. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter if members think it's a good idea. Everything should be a local option. We've even seen some attempts at statewide zoning in this legislative session already be shot down. Relative to those comments about multiple units on a single lot, there was a proposal to allow by right 4 units on each individual lot. Last I read, that has failed or is on its way to failing at the state level. But that statewide zoning, our best efforts to stop statewide zoning are with our representatives, but there's no requirement as part of this grant program to adopt any zoning that the state's looking for, I guess. So keep those two things separate.
Any other comments? All right. All right, we're going to close the public hearing part of this in regards to the acceptance of the grant.
Make a motion. Make a motion to accept and expend the housing opportunity planning grant in the amount of $25,000.
Second.
And it's moved and seconded. Mr. Scotia?
Aye.
Capella?
Aye.
Bailey, aye.
Nantrick, aye. All right, so we will accept the housing opportunity planning grant. A motion to accept the consent agenda.
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I second it.
Any questions? Mr. Scotia?
Aye.
Capella? Capella, aye.
Oh, yes,
Yes.
sorry, I thought you heard.
Yeah.
Bailey, I.
Very good. Okay, appointments. There are a list of proposed appointments. According to our appointment procedure, we can have discussion. They would be voted on at our next meeting, which will be the 6th of March. Are there any questions or concerns from the board? Mr. Data.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you're going to, are we just going to talk about the tax collector, or are we going to skip and just go to the ones we have concern about?
I would suggest that we go to the ones we have concerns about.
So
Okay.
I would propose that now would be a great time for discussion or to see if you're looking for additional information. If you have concerns, maybe the better time to have a conversation about concerns would be in non-public for purposes of reputation. And then the select board could discuss anything publicly and make their decision at the next meeting. That's one of the reasons that we split up the process to the discussion and then vote. So just a proposal to avoid.
My questions do not concern a person's
Great,
itself. It's in general questions on the position.
perfect.
Thank you very much. The
Yep.
position I'm talking about, first of all, is the deputy town treasurer. Now, the reason I asked this is because, you know, we had the town voted to allow the select board to appoint a town treasurer in the last piece. Now, RSA 669-6 says, unless otherwise provided by law, no person shall hold an elected town office who does not have this domicile within the, does not have domicile within the town. So with that being said, the voters voted to allow us, the select board, to appoint the treasurer. The next question is to go for the deputy treasurer. It says a deputy treasurer on the last line in the sentence under 41.29A is a deputy treasurer shall be appointed by the town treasurer with the approval of the select board. Now, we're asked to follow through with that. Now, does the same requirements apply from 669-6 to the from the elected point to be that?
No.
Thank you very much. So
It could be.
In layman's terms, there's no residency requirement for a
thank you very
deputy
much.
treasurer.
That's all I wanted to know.
Okay.
So that was not to do personal.
Understand.
Okay.
Any other questions about any of these? We'll have a non-public session anyway, so. Are there any other concerns?
I have a concern, but that would require to go to non-public.
Very good. Okay.
Before you move on,
Please.
I just want to emphasize you all are citizen volunteers yourselves. And so you're in a lot the same category, but it's absolutely remarkable to me that we can consistently attract such quality individuals to volunteer. And I tell people, I talk to a lot of people on the phone. They have concerns, sometimes they have compliments, but I always make the plug to all of them. If you're interested enough, there's plenty of volunteer opportunities and you ought to look at getting involved. Some of those people are on this list as first-time appointments. And I think, this exercise in democracy relies so heavily on citizen volunteers, and the critical decisions of this town, whether it be at the select board or the zoning board or the planning board, across the table, rely on citizen volunteers, people being willing to step up and make their voice heard. In the select board's annual report, in the town report, which is said to arrive March 7th. So mark your calendars if you're looking for the first edition, the first printing of the printed town report. But it makes a comment about Barrington being a community of neighbors and everybody's duty to do what's in their what they feel is in the best interest of the community. I think that's really important to keep in mind because the divisive political climate it deters people, otherwise reasonable people, from being involved and volunteering their time to help make decisions. So all of the boards and bodies in this town have a long history of respectful disagreeing and all the rest, but it's that effort, I think, that helps attract such quality candidates to volunteer. And so kudos to everybody that's volunteering now and looking to put their hat in the ring. Thank you.
Thank you. I second that too. That is incredible number of people who volunteer, and these are not easy jobs.
Yeah,
Not
take a lot, they take a lot of
a
time.
lot of effort, right? Okay, thank you. Shall we move on to staff report, please, Mr. McIver?
Yes, thank you. So second meeting in February, so I won't read through the work anniversaries, but appreciate their continued service. Another update about the ballot session. So as we talked about at the last meeting, we've been doing everything within our power to make sure, one, that people are aware of the vote on March 14th for the town election, town and school election, but also have an opportunity to be informed and access to objective information and as much background information as they're looking for. I've included in my report the links to some of the detailed information, a sampling of the detailed information that's available. If somebody was going to look at one thing, I would suggest that they go to barrington.nh.gov/2023 voter guide. We have printed copies here, the transfer station, at the town hall, and at the library. That is a summary of each warrant article and the description of them. There's also an entire webpage about the budget, the warrant, the TIF district, which is Article 9, the police negotiations, the fiber warrant article we talked about a little bit earlier, the update to the noise ordinance. There's the video recording of the candidate forum, which features the select board and library trustee candidates this year. You can request an absentee ballot. Some of the other things that we've done this year, we have hitting mailboxes this week, an informational postcard to residents informing them about the vote, where to find more information, has a QR code to that voter guide. So in lieu of sending the voter guide to everybody, this is a low cost alternative which allows us to get the word out and give people access to that information. You've seen now for a while the small election style signs that we have up around town notifying residents about the vote on March 14th. Either today or tomorrow, we have a banner going up next to Community Way informing residents of the impactful decision on Article 9 about the TIF district and the future of the town center with the tax increment financing district. That points people back to the TIF webpage to learn more. And so on the TIF district subject also, we mailed letters to every property owner within the TIF district, letting them know about what's being proposed and you know, all of them having a vested interest as owning property within that district, what it means, what it doesn't mean, and where to find more information. So those went into the mail today. And so some of the steps that we've taken to, like I said, the two goals, make sure residents know about voting and can be informed. For those on the website and social media, we've featured a warrant article every day on social media. One warrant article, the text of it, the explanation to help foster discussion and understanding. And we've been fielding a lot of questions, as I'm sure you all have also, about the vote and what to expect. So if you do have questions, don't hesitate to let us know. And then the last thing on that is a plan for March 14th. Communicate to the chair when you're available to be in person on the 14th. The chair will make a schedule. We'll fill in with pro tem appointments for any gaps that might exist. But the select board, it's responsible for the select board to say, yeah, to have a presence, I guess. Questions about that?
Well, the other things, I was looking at the website for the last couple, 3-4 days. And I went in and looked at the question and answers that we have set up for the individuals that want to do it. And I'll tell you, that is quite the thing. Where they ask the questions, get the answers and everything else. And if people have not participated in that, or even just gone there to do as a question and answer to see what the results are, it's fantastic. So my compliments to everybody working there.
Appreciate that feedback. Great. Moving on to something really exciting. So I have to give credit to the person that I heard about this from, Jack Gale. And this was proposed a few years ago, I think, as a get out the vote when the library project was originally being proposed. But I think it's a fantastic idea. I don't think it needs any excuse, a specific topic. But we're going to have a voting booth for kids at the election on March 14th this year. It's going to be in the cafeteria. It's going to be on the stage. We have stickers. We'll have ballots with 3 questions. And these are questions that the kids are going to be making actual impactful decisions for the town. One question will be what color the dog registration tags will be for 2024. So I think they'll have a list of 6 or 7 options. And then they'll have the opportunity to name 2 town vehicles. The first ever recreation vehicle, the 15-passenger van, which is on order, will get a name from the kids in the community. And the next dump truck, the next dump plow truck from the highway department will also get a name. So probably tomorrow, the adults in the community will have an opportunity to weigh in on proposing names. And then staff will select 5 or 6 options to let the kids pick from, vote. They'll also have an opportunity to write in. And so parents should bring their kids voting, and we've partnered with the schools to get the information out to the schools. So hopefully some kids will get their parents excited enough about it that if they weren't considering voting otherwise, they'll drag their parents to the polls so they can come make a decision.
Are they actually going to put the names on these vehicles?
Yes.
Thank you.
They're going to be their name.
No,
We're not placating. This is the real deal. This is the real deal. Yeah.
How are you getting the word out to parents?
So a variety of ways, full court press. So the library or for parents to propose names. Yeah. On social media. Yep. Primarily social media through the rec department for the van and the highway department for the dump truck.
Have we asked the schools to pass that on too?
Yes, yeah, and so we've already started planning next year also, because we'd really like to work with the schools to get some of the older kids, maybe middle school or high school, involved in helping plan it. Maybe the schools can come up with some decisions that they need made. And so, yeah, hopefully this is the first of many, but I think a pretty simple activity that will hopefully expose kids to the civic process, get them excited, help spread some news about what we do in local government. So stay tuned. Okay, 2 topics of importance post March 14th. The select board meeting of March 20th will be the select board's reorganization meeting. So the first order of business on the agenda for that meeting will be the election of chair and vice chair. So I've copied in my report, the printed copies that you have, how the process is spelled out in the rules of procedures. I would encourage anybody that is interested in a leadership position on the board to be thinking about that and be prepared to participate in that process on March 20th. And obviously that will be the first meeting with any newly elected members as well. Second is committee assignments. So the chair of the select board will be chosen on March 20th. And then at the very next meeting on April 10th, the chair will be expected to make committee assignments for the members. And so I've listed here the list of boards, committees, and commissions that exist that have traditionally had select board representation. And so I too would encourage you to consider what committees you'd like to participate in for the upcoming year. And if you really want to be certain you'll be a part of that committee, then I would encourage you to put your hat in for chair, because you get to decide. And if you don't, then make good friends with whoever will be chair. And so March 20th selection of officers, and April 10th, the chair will be announcing the decisions for committee assignments for the upcoming year. Okay. Moving on, I will speak for Municipal Office Administrator Cottle and just say the only additional item for signature will be the release for Rocky Point, which will be sent to the chair.
Very good. All business. Naming request. The proposal was to change the name of Gooseneck Lane to Sergeant Way to honor Officer or Sergeant Jesse Sheriff, who lived on that street. We did ask that we polled the anonymously polled the residents, and we got back quite a few of these. How many people are total on?
We actually received one more today. So an update from what was in my report, there were 13 responses. We mailed 18 letters and got 13 back. And 9 expressed their support and 4 expressed concerns.
Chance to look at these comments, Joyce, did you have a chance?
It did, and most of the people who were opposed were because of like the administrative work of changing their address.
All right. Yeah, Jim, you had the comments?
Kind of waiting to hear what you guys had to say. I mean, he was a great member to this community. He helped out down at the BYA, and you know, wife and kids are still in town. I mean, I definitely think it would be noble to do it. I could see the frustrations because I think this is probably going to be the 3rd road change on that name.
I think so.
So I mean, they're probably familiar with the process, or their new homeowners, one or the other. And, you know, maybe they didn't get a chance to meet him, but from what I heard, you know, he was an incredible guy, so I would be in support of it.
Mr. Bailey?
We are changing this for 911, correct?
The road name change request was submitted for comment to E911 and they expressed no objections.
Okay, so that takes care of that part of the RSA. Thank you very much.
I think everyone agrees that this particular officer really deserves some sort of honor in the town, and changing the name of the road to Sergeant Wade. I'm sorry. Changing the name to Sergeant Wade was the suggestion. One other suggestion has been, though, since we're not allowed to actually use his name on this change, we can't use, no, it can't be Sergeant Cheryl Wade. Would be that we would name some other place in the town, specifically with his name, and that might be a better honor. To honor his name for a longer period of time rather than just Sergeant Way. And that doesn't preclude us, even if we change the name of the road, doesn't preclude us from doing that anyway. But that was just another suggestion that was out there as a proposal, that perhaps that would be a better honor.
What do you have in mind?
Just changing the name to Sergeant Road. Excuse me, go ahead, Jim.
What do you have in mind?
Well, I think one idea might be to explore with the BYA if they're interested in putting Jesse's name on the BYA field.
That would be one suggestion. If we build a new pavilion or something of that sort, which is one of the suggestions that people have in case the TIF district goes into effect, would be to name a pavilion for him or a recreational field for him. The BYA field exists and would probably be, and since he is very active in that, or he was active in that, in BYA, that might be a more lasting memorial to him.
I think it would need to be a BYA decision.
Well, it would be, but the town could name other, other athletic facilities or community facilities for him. That would be a more long lasting, I mean, at some point, someone's going to forget what sergeant we're talking about,
So
that is
Field A is already named after Jesse.
Which, say that again.
Field's already named after it.
It is.
So, I mean, I think the Sergeant Way would be cool. And then if they want to do maybe a nice piece of rock with a placard on there, and it could explain it a little bit and pay a little bit more honor to Jesse and his family.
They could do something like the naming of the bridge down the road here on 9. You can just get a sign made similar to that. I hope that's what you mean. And, get it still saying that this is in honor of that, you can put that sign underneath the Sergeant Way sign, but it's not changing the name, but it shows why we want to do it. So, you know, the state does allow that to happen. Because the bridge I'm talking about was named after Mr. Jennison for his, duties in World War II. But it didn't change anything else except the fact the bridge was named after him and it wasn't a road. So, you know, and we could do an explanation similar to that on Sergeant Way and do it that way. There's a lot of things we can do, and it just takes a little research. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So total 18 letters that went out to the residents on the streets, right? 9 came back positive, 4 came back negative, and the rest were unanswered, correct?
So far.
So I would say a majority of the people that live on that road are in favor. So I'm one to invest power into the people, and if that's what they want, that's what they're going to get from me.
How are the people?
He needs to go to math class.
I would like to make a motion that we rename Gooseneck Lane to Sergeant Way.
I'll second that.
And pursuant to the select board's authority of RSA 231:133.
Yes, that's exactly what I meant.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me just clarify for the comment from the audience. I believe it was 9 in support and 4 in opposition.
There's 18.
And the remainder of the people did not respond.
Yeah, there's 18 households. 9 supported. That's not a majority.
Majority of the responses, I think, is what the implication was.
Correct.
I mean, if people don't respond, we can't do anything about it.
Mr. Chairman, we have a motion that's been
Yeah.
moved and seconded.
Yep. Call the question. Mr. Scotia?
I'm good.
Got the-
He's a vote. Was that yes?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't. Yeah, sorry, my bad. Sakosha, aye.
Thank you.
Kathy, other way.
Bailey, aye.
Mancheck, aye. New business. Community center grant opportunity.
Okay, so there are 2 specifically. I only had one in mind, but actually the chair of the library trustees made me aware of another one, which is even apparently more applicable. But the community project funds that the select board, that the town pursued, and we received the $1.5 million grant for this building. They're accepting applications for the fiscal year 2024 congressionally directed spending. And so in my mind, I think there's a strong case to be made to create a municipal anchor in this town center, which we've given a lot of conversation to. We've talked a lot about. Obviously, we have Article 9, establishing a TIF district to try to accomplish that vision even more so. And I think again, the whole idea of this town center came out of the 2003 master plan update, the comprehensive zoning update from 2007, which the whole town voted on, or in 2008, I'm sorry, that was 2008. And every opportunity we've given residents to come forward and tell us what they think, the strongest voice has been for this town center. And each time it talks about a municipal presence, a municipal facility in the town center. And so what I'm asking the select board to consider is I've written what I would call an elevator pitch, which I would gladly, at the select board's discretion, expand to a grant request for at least 2 grant opportunities. One, the congressionally directed spending, but the community,
Project fund.
the Community Development Finance Authorities, CDFA, has a community, specifically a community center grant. They have $20 million and up to $1 million per project for community centers. And so what I've written, which I don't need to read, I know you've all read it, but this elevator pitch for a grant proposal that talks about Barrington being a community of almost 10,000 people. I don't say this specifically, but that doesn't even have a breakfast spot. The residents in Barrington have said that they want a place to gather. The town center is what they envision, this, consolidated development. and a community center that serves the needs of a library, recreation space, meeting space, adjacent to this town center, which is designed to attract the type of commercial development the residents have said that they want, to maintain, to achieve this vision of a quaint town center. And so I would not go through the trouble of preparing these grant applications and pursuing this narrative, I guess, the elevator pitch narrative that I've written here, if it wasn't the select board's desire. One of the reasons I think that's important is because describing a project like this and pursuing grant opportunities like the two specifically there, you need to sell a project that checks the most boxes for these granting authorities and, cast the widest net. And so that's what I tried to do with the elevator pitch. And so I guess I'm interested in the select board's thoughts. If you think it's worth my time and effort to pursue grant opportunities with a theme like that, or if you think it's best just to continue, kind of stay the course as we are now.
So I had a question and a comment. So the CDFA, so is that a federal government grant and under what department?
It's state. I don't know where they get their money. That they have $20 million available in this round. It's federal money. Thank you, Ms. Cuddy.
And then my second was actually wanting to hear from the library as to their support of this.
And Jim has his hand up also when you're ready, Mr. Chair.
No, in this case, I think we do need to waive the rules on this because.
Make sure it's a question we have to ask ourselves.
Ms. Gabrielle.
Sure, this is Betty Yellow, and I'm the chair of the library trustees. Connor called me, or I called you, I guess, earlier this week, and then we had a discussion about this. I want to say that we're in the midst of a planning process, and you may remember I told you we have a sort of a planning session and a design session with the public scheduled for the end of March, but the federal government doesn't necessarily abide by our calendar. So the trustees had not made a decision as yet as to which was going to be the more desirable location. As you may remember when we had polled people on that earlier, it really came out to 50-50. Some people liked staying on Ramsdale. Some people really were excited about the idea of a town center. So that said, without making any commitment on that, I think that there's some real potential. I don't know whether going to the well after getting $1.5 million for this building, what the likelihood is, but I guess I think it's worth a shot. The concerns that in talking with trustees that we have is that as we've looked at the library, which has very sort of specific design needs, that's why we use an architect, that, and as I've said to you before, in most every community that has a library, the library, unless they have a separate community center, the library is the community center. I think this allows the potential for us to realize that community center aspect because it would bring more money to the table. When we proposed bond articles 3-4 years ago for $4 million, which, as we know, did not pass muster. It was really difficult to try to realize that goal of a community center because the dollars don't go as far as we think they ought to, let's put it that way. And with the construction, escalation of construction costs over the past 3 years, they're gonna go less far. So I think the fact that maybe we might be able to tap into some additional federal money through these grants. The Library Foundation is also looking at a humanities grant, which is more federal money. But that federal money, humanities grant, requires low match that is not other federal dollars. So we're still looking, we're not going to get this through without going to the taxpayers and asking for money. But hopefully, if we're successful in getting these funds, then we would have a better chance at getting enough money to really build a building that meets those broader needs that we think the community has been asking for. One of the other challenges with going this route is what Connor described as the timetable of when you get to know about these funds. And yes, the good news is there were various steps, so if you're cut out of the picture early on, it's not too late to move forward. But I think the final notification of whether you are actually successful and in the budget is the end of the calendar year, which I don't need to tell you, puts us very close to the whole time frame for deciding what's going to be on the warrant article for 24 and getting through public hearings. So those are challenges that I think we would face. Quite honestly, I feel that the trustees have a very good working relationship with the town administration, particularly Connor. So I guess I want to be confident that even though we may have differences about design, construction, who's controlling things, that we can work that out over time. So I guess this is generally a positive, optimistic perspective, recognizing that there are a lot of moving parts to this and a lot of ifs. And I think the community development money also requires local matches, I recall. So that's another factor that again plays into it. We'd still be needing to look for substantial grant or not grant, bond from the voters. So that's I guess what I'd have to say, but happy to answer any other questions you have.
And Ms. Gaudiello hit on it very well. The rub is that certain assumptions have to be made to try to make a request for money. And one of the reasons, one of the roadblocks for the Library Foundation and trustees in pursuing grants previously is they want to see the proposal, they want to see it go to voters, and it's difficult to go to a granting agency with a baseline idea without specifics and assumptions. And like I said, that's kind of the rub. In my mind, to make a compelling argument for grant funds, tying in the community and multiple ideas and this idea of a central town center, like we've talked about, are certain assumptions that have to be made. And, Ms. Gaudiello and I have talked a lot. And it wouldn't be every step of it, the process wouldn't be easy, but interested in the select board's perspective on worth the trouble or not.
My question is, when is the application due?
So the congressionally directed spending is soon. I mean, it's like there's the deadlines for the different congressional offices are first couple weeks of March, end of March, to submit the kind of intents. They're not really comprehensive. Honestly, the elevator pitch here is the foundation to build out from. They're asking those types of questions, and it's attainable. If the select board wanted to throw our hat in the ring, it's attainable.
Since we've opened this up for public comments, any other comment, Mr. Air?
And you want to go to Jim first, though? He's had his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jim had his hand up first. Could I ask Mr. Skosh first?
Yes,
Sorry, Jim.
Community center is great. I think that could definitely help free up some space in the current library that's there. And having a community center downtown for gathering and educational purposes and recreation is definitely a good thing. And I don't know where it gets to the point where, if we were to move the library now and put them in a bigger building, would they be able to sustain with their current budgets, or how much will that go? Because, this is one of the, that's everybody's opinion here. I'm a representative here, but that's one of the things is we get these buildings, then we're going to have to restaff them, higher cost, hopefully they're energy efficient. And a big thing is there's a lot of what ifs going around right now, but until there's something solid, in place, people can see direction. I mean, I think that's when you're going to get the realistic opinion of the voters. Because we could say, what if this happens, and what if we go here, or what if we do that? Those are just opinions I needed to share. Thanks.
Daniel, 334 Old Kong Turnpike. I talked to Roddy Gingrich personally on a couple of different ideas. I really don't want to get into it tonight. But, it's so confusing with this TIF. If that isn't even patched yet. This TIF district and stuff. And then Jim, what if? Seems like the town's already spending money. This is SB2 town, so. It seems like all these things, but at the 28, I think it's gonna be real good next month to get direction and some idea and stuff. Go after these grants, but we need more direction, idea and stuff. And right now, it's very confusing me, and there is gonna be future expenses and stuff. The reactions are reactions. But I look forward to the 28. I have a better understanding, me personally. Thank you.
Couple quick, just clarification, March 25th. March 25th is the date. That's a Saturday, Saturday morning, 9 o'clock, I think is the call time. Yep, so March 25th. But I think it's also an important clarification about the TIF district. These two ideas are necessarily separate, and nobody is spending any money. I mean, the request before the select board is to consider whether they want me to devote time and energy on pursuing grants, not spending money. I think the overlap that exists between what the TIF district proposes and the narrative here, this elevator pitch here, is the idea of the town center. And the idea of the town center encompasses a lot of things. You know, every one of the plans, it's zoning amendments that have been passed by residents. It's master plan chapter updates, which talk about the town center and the specifics within the town center. So the people have talked about wanting a community center, wanting a municipal building in the town center. And so that's what we're talking about here. The TIF district is different. The TIF district talks about accomplishing the broader vision, how to accomplish the broader vision for the town center. And it provides a funding source for the type of improvements that residents have talked about in the town center, which aren't going to happen unless the town pays for them. And what the TIF district does is it allows the town to reinvest the new tax dollars. So instead of going to all the taxpayers in the town of Barrington and say, we're going to use your money to build this crosswalk or to build this sidewalk or to put in this park or this pavilion or gazebo, it uses the value added by the businesses and development that happens in the town center, uses that money to pay for the improvements, perpetuating the idea of a broader tax base with the vision that the residents have identified, again, their decision in establishing the idea for the town center, the vision for the town center.
Thank you. Every action is a reaction. Reinvest this money into something, this table. You pay for it now, but there's a maintenance thing to it. So direct money out of the tax base. So it is coming from taxpayers in the future. Because we don't have a tax base. And that's what the.
I want to stay on topic, I guess, but you can have maintenance funds. The TIF district is not just the construction of improvements, but the maintenance of improvements as well. And Roger Gingrich is participating virtually, and he had raised his hand.
Mr. Gingrich, I think, is next. Mr. Gingrich, go ahead.
To unmute yourself.
Hi there, Roger Gingrich on Peabody Way. 2 points. One is to echo what Connor was saying about investing time in grants, grant writing. This humanities grant is a monster, and it involves not just the buy-in from the trustees or the foundation or library staff. It involves buy-in from town administration. Strong, unequivocal support letters from our congressional delegates all the way into the town administration are strong things that are required, in my view, and have been in the several grants, successful grants that I've been reading. So that's one thing, to spend the time doing it and not have that upfront support. The nice thing about the humanities grant is that we find out on December 17th of 2023 whether there is going to be money available for us. They don't disperse the money until 2024, but they'll make a decision about it without a voter approval yet. The second thing I wanted to ask really with respect to what seems to be maybe a standalone town center, who would do the programming for the town center? When a community based center of activity exists in the library, it's the library staff that does the programming, lines up the speakers and so forth. Who would do that in the standalone if the select board were running that?
Probably.
So I'll just be clear, what I've proposed is a community center, which includes the library. And so in the vision that I've proposed to the select board, this elevator pitch, the programming would be, the library would be recreation. It would be community groups and organizations looking for a space to gather and come together. The important part of a community center, in my mind, from an administrative standpoint, is it would need to be staffed. There would need to be oversight. There would need to be, the building would need to have people in it to be able to do that. And so my vision is that would be very much a combined effort, and programming would come from a variety of places.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Grant was fine.
And I think Jim put his hand back up when you're ready.
Ken Grant, 372 Rocky Mountain Road. One of the a couple of questions I would have about this grant is, one, you were mentioning that a figure of about 10,000 citizens in Barrington. You mentioned that figure, 10,000. What number, I'd like to know, what number are you going to report in this grant that you have support? Because you said you had support, but you didn't give any number. How many people?
If the select board wants a discussion and back and forth, I'm happy to address it, but
That's one of the things, if you want to answer that, I think that's important to
so
answer.
Mr. Grant, I'll give you the same answer I gave you at deliberative session relative to the town center. Our job, and my job specifically, is to receive direction from the select board. The select board receives this direction from the residents. That's never, just like we heard on Sergeant Way, right?
Yeah.
Not everybody is always going to agree with every decision that's made. The overwhelming message that I have encountered in my role as town administrator by town vote, whether it be zoning amendments or at the planning board, master plan chapter updates, strategic planning, every opportunity that we've given residents to come in and tell us what you want to see, whether it be townwide with a vote or smaller community outreach activities, have described a vision of the town center. And so what our job is how do we achieve that, what residents have said that they want. But that's the beauty of something like the TIF district, because that puts it back out to voters. And voters are going to get an opportunity to decide again, as it should be. We shouldn't be deciding. I shouldn't be deciding. The select board shouldn't be deciding. But on March 14th, the voters are going to get to say, is it a good idea to establish this TIF district to achieve this vision of the town center? Relative to what we're talking about here, again, this idea of the town center has consistently identified a civic use public facility, a community center, a library, early projects proposed a town hall. And so that's been a consistent message. And so again, the select board, the reason I'm asking the select board if they want the town, me to spend time trying to pursue grants like this, is because do they see that vision? Have they heard that from their constituents as well? And so to your point about where is the data, where are the statistics, in every one of the presentations on the TIF district, I've provided a link to almost 10 different sources of collecting data, whether it be townwide votes or strategic planning, master plan, other surveys, et cetera, that have consistently made that message. And so that's where the data is. That's what's driving the work that I'm doing and what I've heard that residents want. And so you might not share that opinion, and that's fine. I don't think all residents in town do. What I would encourage you to do is show up and vote on the 14th and make your decision known then, because that's going to steer where things go. And if 60% of the people vote yes, then that's going to give us direction to head in that direction. But knowing full well 40% of the people voted no. If 60% of the people vote no, then that's direction that says, okay, we don't have the luxury of not making decisions waiting for everybody to show up at the ballot box. We have to make decisions based on the people that show up and get involved and make decisions.
My question, again, you said you were going to do a grant, and my concern is, if you're gonna go tell the people who are receiving these grants that we have 10,000 citizens, trying to insinuate that there's a 10,000 citizens backing, that would be an accurate statement. So that's why I asked if you had numbers that you were prepared to report in this grant of the citizens in the town that were supporting it. So I will end my question there, and I thank you. The other thing was that if you have a community center such as you're talking about, then are people aware that if they wanted to use that community center, they have to go out and hire an insurance agent to present you the town that is with a liability insurance? Is that understood?
So first of all, the building doesn't exist now. There are no rules or procedures for this building.
Yeah.
And I would suspect that if there was a large enough contingent in the town that advocated to the select board to say, we want the town to carry an insurance policy for the meeting space so that somebody doesn't have to have their outside insurance to use it, the select board could make that decision. Whether they will or won't will be up to them. But I don't think we can make assumptions now what the rules of the building will be for a building that doesn't exist.
Just regarding what has been talked about and given the floor to the library to speak to it, that it wasn't too long ago that there was some kind of survey done or something like that. Selectman's associate said, well, that didn't represent whatever, 4 or 5% of the people that they surveyed, or that it turned out as a number representing going forward, something the library wanted to do as far as planning and expanding, building a building, that sort of thing. So it wasn't too long ago. And I know it was the Selectman Soldier that mentioned it, that it wasn't the return
Three
of information.
people were solicited or responded to the letter or request that the library had put out, which, you know, there may be 10,000 people in this town. There's probably a little bit more now, but there's roughly close, plus or minus, well, not minus, but 7,000 plus registered voters in town. So you do that math roughly, and that's where I came up with that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, Ms. Scotty,
I wanted to respond to.
I've had it for about 10 minutes.
Okay.
Jim put his hand back up.
okay, wait. Okay, yeah, Mr. Scotia, go ahead.
So I think a standalone community center would work out, just how this town is built on. There's a lot of love in this community, a lot of passion in this community. And I think a lot of those groups that are, you know, like the Barrington Bloomers and whatnot, that, you know, it may take up inside space at the library. You know, if those people came over, may we have to hire a director for it if that came, or depending on how the rules were for that. Sure. I mean, I definitely think that could happen. You know, do I think it would relieve some space over there? Definitely think it could. What else? It's been so long since I had other stuff, but you know, it's just, I think the verbiage needs to be changed, because every time I hear, you know, if it's a trustee or whoever else, it's library, it's library, it's library. So I wouldn't want to propose or have the community members confused on, okay, this is a community center and then the library is a part of it. You know, there needs to be a little church and state, or there needs to be a clear definition going, hey, you know, we are the library and community center, not just the library. Or, you know, when we want, we throw the community center on it to, you know, at lack of better terms, help our cause, because, you know, yes, it is important. I do agree with it, but it needs to be clear to residents, because like I said, I'm one of 5. There's many different views. I've spoken to a lot of people on the phone over the last couple of weeks, and I have to share these. Otherwise, you know, the voices won't be heard. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Jim. Done? And down. Okay, Ms. Scotty.
Well, I wanted to respond to a question about, that Mr. Sakosha brought up about additional costs for a building or a broader a larger building and that sort of thing. One of the areas actually we're going to talk about on the 25th is sustainability. And sustainability is not, do you have solar panels? You know, it's energy efficiency, it's operational efficiency. And in operational efficiency, you also talk about staffing. It's one of the reasons why most libraries, unless newer libraries, unless they are really huge, are really focused on a single story building with good sight lines, as we have in our little library. Because part of what you're doing is you're trying to supervise those areas and make sure people are safe and materials are safe and so on. So that would be an important element in any design that would help to reduce the cost, which is not to say that over time, if demand grows for more hours and so on, that you don't need more staff, but you try to design the building to minimize those additional costs.
Okay.
And I guess I have to say, I think it would be a big mistake for the town to do a separate community center and talk about that's going to relieve the pressure on the library for space. I really think that combining and having one community center with a library, the meeting rooms and all that, there should be a lot of synergy among the groups that use that. And I think that would contribute to the efficiency, the cost efficiency of such a building over time. If there were a proposal to have a separate community center and leave the library to its own devices, I would have to say I would not be able to support that idea. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Bailey.
Thank you very much. I have some concerns on here. Mr. Ginder has brought up the fact that some of these grants that we turn around and go for, we're going to turn around and some of them request matching funds. And so if we do a combination, as Ms. Galliano said, for the particular facility, and we have matching funds for it, I think it's a backdoor way of turning around and asking the taxpayers to pay for something if they already said twice they didn't want the library. I don't like that idea. I don't think that's a fair way to do for the residents, and we do have less than 10,000 residents here on it.
Okay, I think we're getting a little further afield. The question of whether we want to pursue a grant or have him pursue a grant. We're not here really to discuss whether it's a library or a community center in detail. It's just the concept of a community center, which probably or may include a library. Do we want Mr. McIver to spend his effort and time applying for a grant? Or
If the chair would finish me to permit.
Okay,
The reason why I brought this up is that the grants require us to have matching funds. Now, if we're gonna have matching funds, what happens to the grant? And I'm asking this of Connor, what happens to the grant if the town doesn't vote the matching funds for this community center that is going to include or by itself or with the library? What happens then?
I'll say this unequivocally, that any project, library, a community center library will require a bond vote of the residents, period, and will be contingent on such a vote. I don't see a reality. I've been surprised before. I was surprised by the $1.5 million for this building, but I don't see a reality where we're building a $4, $5, $6 million building. Who knows how much it would cost in this town without a bond by the voters. And I think that emphasizes the point that at the end of the day, it's the voters who are in charge and they get to make the decision. We have to direct our energy in the most productive way, assuming what we hear residents want, what we think residents want. But at the end of the day, the most impactful decisions in this community are made by voters, period. And so this project would be just the same. I don't see a reality where the voters wouldn't have the final say with a bond vote, regardless. And to your point about a grant, it would be contingent on that. If a grant requires matching funds, those matching funds would be a condition.
That's my concern, because I don't want us to sit here and turn around and guarantee or say that we are in favor of the matching funds without the public's input. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I think Mr. Sakosha has his hand back up.
Mr. Sakosha. Jen?
Connor, how much time do you think that this is going to take applying for these grants? That's going to take away from you day to day.
I would probably spend 2 or 3 days worth of time collectively between now and the due date preparing the materials for the grant applications.
Okay. I'm gonna leave it at this because we gotta get back. We've definitely drifted. I am, like I've told Chief Walker before, I'm all in favor for applying for the grant, but just because we're applying for the grant, that doesn't mean that we're gonna go through with it. You know, we can apply for it, you know, get approved for it, but ultimately it has to go to the voters. I don't know what the board thinks about, you know, what are we talking about? 24 hours worth of work on the grant, but you know, I would say, you know, my opinion is let's apply for it, but you know, it's not a promise, it's not a definite. So, you know, just keep that in mind.
Do you have additional information, new information?
Yeah, it's on the bond. Does it have to be a bond to be privately funded to the town
It-
to match it?
There are endless possibilities if we're in dreamland for alternative funding.
Goes to community center, library, will the grant, was it accept the federal grant additions?
Any donation, any unanticipated revenue would have to come before the select board in a noticed public hearing. Right.
Right. The select board has money in hand, they can give to the federal government, match the bond.
Right.
Thanks.
So buy a lot of lottery tickets.
Yeah, that's-
Okay,
So you could make that.
all right,
Or sell land.
okay.
I
Miss
just wanted to
Capella.
say, to the comment that the voters have turned down things in the past. My experience has been any new building in this town has gone up multiple times to the voters. So our last two schools, I think they went to the vote 3 and 4 times before they were passed. So in some ways, that's how we operate.
I read about
Right,
it.
you get 60%. We have had a majority vote for it.
Okay, the direction I'm looking
Okay.
for is, do you want me to spend my time on this? And if you do you want it to be this narrative, this elevator pitch that I've proposed?
I would like to propose that you move forward with a grant. I actually think the time spent, even if the grant isn't successful, will be useful in subsequent avenues in town.
Understood.
I don't know that we need, well, yeah, Jim, do you have comments?
Yeah, I would want more clarity on the library aspect of it. So that way, if, you know, the voters listening to this video afterwards or seeing anything come forward after the decision is made, it's clear to them so that they have a clear understanding. That's been one of my biggest points.
Yeah, the question is, do we want Connor to spend 16 hours putting in an application for this grant?
I say,
And Ms. Capella said yes. Jim, what do you think?
But it's also in how he wrote it, is how he just said, do you want me to do that? And I don't. You know what
All right, I think what
Question.
Jim, if Jim were king for a day, it sounds like his proposal would be pursue the grant as a community center alone. And to be honest, it's one of the reasons I wanted to put this on the select board.
It's part of it.
Right. Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Change the caption up top so people don't think that they're just voting for a community center. Let them know what they're getting between the nuts and bolts, because not everybody reads the fine line. That's all.
Right.
to me, a community center could have a rec presence. They
Mhm.
could have a library present. I mean, I don't think we know yet.
Yeah, we're not asking them to vote on anything yet.
Because it would need to come back to the voters.
I like the elevator pitch.
Well, I don't.
So we have, and we don't have Rob here, so we have 2 for and 2 against.
Motion doesn't carry.
And well, it wasn't a motion, but yeah, I suspect no one wants to get $1 million, so.
No, I just feel we, the voters, the other voters that are sitting out there being backdoored on this, and I agree that, we need to know more on how this is gonna work, before we spend, bonus time, whether it's 20 hours or 16 hours. You know, I just don't think we're ready for it, so that's why I say no.
Okay. All
I
right,
mean, I think it's a good opportunity to look for some money that can help the town envision. We don't know exactly where this was gonna go, but to see if there's potential for some community buildings, which could include a library, could include an office for their better facilities for the rec department. I think it just opens the door to kind of thinking about things. And I feel, but not yet saying this is exactly.
Well, it's the same time we talk about our police station too, you know? We've sat here and talked over the years of increasing the size of the police station and or turning around and looking for money for a new one. I mean, we've had all these items all come around, so, you know, there is a thing that we need here, but we also have to make a good budget to the people in the town. And I think moving forward, this part here is not something that I'm been asked to do. And I do realize that I am leaving, but that has nothing to do with it. I'm just exercising what the people, I feel the people do not want, and that's to spend more money.
but it might be nice to say, to go to, if we want community, to ask community to do a library or a community center, to say, we have an additional $1 million here to go with this. So it reduces your tax burden, bond burden by $1 million.
I've considered that too before I've ended my decision.
Okay, good.
Check them.
Okay, all right, we'll close the discussion on it. Okay.
Understood.
Thank
Yep.
you. Ground maintenance, gonna.
Okay, this one's really kind of simple. The details are in here. It's an unfortunate circumstance, but we don't have a lot of options. Another domino has fell with the school, and we were recently notified that they'll no longer be able to maintain the mowing and grounds maintenance that they've done for years. And so they're going to keep the contract with the cemetery this year. They'll maintain the cemetery grounds for us. The trouble is we have a lot of facilities with a lot of grass that needs to grow. And maybe one of the things that'll come of this is figuring out ways to plant wildflowers and clover, so we have fewer things that we have to maintain. It's not going to help us for 2023. We have a capped landfill that has maintenance requirements required as part of the post-closure report. We have this new facility that we need to keep looking nice. Residents spent $2.6 million in this building. There's the field at the public safety building, which people drive by every single day, and not least of which is the recreation field, which is used for summer camp all year round. And so group of us met, really productive meeting. I appreciate staff time and brainstorming. Okay, we've been dealt this reality. What are our options? We discussed a variety of options, everywhere from contracting to doing things in-house, trying to rent equipment, trying to use equipment. And I'm bringing to you what our best option was, what we believe our best option is. We think that based on the road construction workload in the highway department this summer, that we'd be able to dedicate the time of a highway department crew member towards the grounds maintenance activities. That might not always be available in the future because it depends on how much road reconstruction our team is doing versus paving and other work. And so the road agent's reasonably confident that he has the capacity to defer other projects and focus on this for a member of his team. The biggest piece missing at that point is a mower. We have weed eaters, we have fire department has a backpack blower that we can use this year to get us by, but we need a mower. We got a couple of quotes, and a reasonable mower to accomplish the tasks that we have this year would be about $9,000. Now, purchasing policy, the select board doesn't make decisions on $9,000 purchases, except we don't have $9,000 budgeted. And much to the surprise of some residents out there, we don't have $9,000 just sitting around in the budget waiting for the need to buy a mower. And so What I'm asking is if the select board is interested in that model where we have an existing staff member, so no additional FTE to do the mowing. Backup would be the working facilities manager. Buy a mower. I would propose to use either the ARPA funds, or we have about $20,000 from the New Hampshire retirement rebate. So these are additional funds the town has accepted within the last year. So outside of the operating budget, something that's a one-time expenditure that would allow us to accomplish the tasks that we need to accomplish for this year. And that would solve the problem for this year, and we would begin planning immediately for years in the future. It's very reasonable to expect that we'll have to pick up the cemetery maintenance next year. We'll wait to see what would happen there, but what would come along with that would be a lot more work, but also the funding from the cemetery trustees, about $14,500 in this year's budget. And so if we pick that up, maybe we could devote those funds to hiring a seasonal staff member just for grounds maintenance in the growing season or something like that. We're going to solve those problems later. So this would be kind of the temporary solution, but the most permanent decision would be the purchase of that equipment, which in reviewing all the options, we didn't really see an honest alternative. And it would be a lot more to try to contract it out. So that's the proposal, and we don't have to make a decision tonight. Fortunately, with the snow falling probably right now, the grass isn't growing yet. And so I don't have it in here expecting the select board to make a decision. I'm happy to collect more information or follow up with answers to your questions. But the ask is to authorize up to $10,000 from either the ARPA funds or the NHRS rebate account to purchase a mower so we can do our own mowing this year.
Trailer?
We have a trailer. So yes, we have a trailer that we would use this year.
This year, so that would be for the next year's boards to consider it, the trailer too.
Maybe it'll work out, maybe it'll be fine. We have an enclosed trailer that the fire department received on a grant maybe 15 or 20 years ago. And we have solved the original purpose of the grant with other equipment. And so the intended purpose for that trailer in the future was to use as like a barricade trailer, to load up road closure barricades in something people can hook up to in a storm, go out, take the stuff around. In this meeting, we talked about, the fire chief and road agent talked about using an open trailer, a small open trailer that we have, that we just did some repair work on, and use that instead of the enclosed trailer. And if we went this route, use the enclosed trailer for that purpose. So it could be that that's good enough. That's a good enough solution. And in the future, when we pick up other work, we wouldn't need additional trailering equipment. But that would be the plan for 2023.
Thank you.
It's a good question, though.
Any other questions? Okay, I guess it boils down to ARPA or NHRS rebate.
Yeah, Connor, do you have any reason why we would choose one or the other?
What would Connor say in a moment like this? Money is
Fungible.
fungible. It really doesn't matter. I would say use the NHRS account just because it's smaller. The sooner we can spend that down, exactly.
Need a motion?
If you're ready to make a motion, I would take one, but don't feel like you need to make a decision tonight.
Good. I think Jim, do you have any comments on this?
We can make a motion tonight, I feel.
I agree.
I agree.
Make a motion to take it out of the
NHRA.
NHS funds.
Up to $10,000.
10,000.
Okay.
Second? Capella, second. Any other comments? We're ready for a vote. Mr. Scotia.
Should we do it for 10,000 or should we go for like 11 or 12 to include the first year maintenance or second year maintenance on top of that? For the mower.
That's not a bad idea.
Probably not a bad idea.
Turn around and amend my motion to go 12,000.
I'm not gonna vote for that. I mean, we've only asked for 9, so we're giving you 10, we'll give you 12.
It's an up, yeah, I would say it's an up to, but.
I mean, we just tried to get a permission to get some free money and we voted down on that, so.
But Mr. Scotia recommended an amendment of 12. I'll second that amendment. We'll vote on the amendment. To 12, Mr. Kosha,
Scotia,
Capello, no.
Bailey, aye.
and Shrek, aye. Okay, now we're ready for the amended motion. It is up to $12,000 from NHRS rebate account for the new mower. Mr. Scotia,
Scotia,
Capiello,
Reluctantly, aye.
Bailey, aye.
and Shrek, aye. Very good.
Arm twisting today.
Okay. Anything else? Reports. Report. Capiello.
The planning board did not meet since our last meeting. The master plan steering committee for transportation did meet this afternoon. And we looked at the data that came from some of the mapping. So previously we looked at some of the responses to the survey question. This was from some of the mapping. And we used that to kind of prioritize some ideas for the town. So it is really a brainstorming, sort of concrete action. But I thought just because Representative Levesque mentioned the coast bus, one of the things we did clearly, I think everyone there agreed on that having fixed transportation come to Barrington doesn't make sense, or to advocate for that. I mean, the coast bus couldn't make it here, the UNH service from Rochester through Barrington couldn't make it. And we would support looking at transportation that's in a direct response to a consumer here, a resident. So for example, we have ready care vans that come to provide transport for people for non-emergency things, for going to a doctor's appointment. So that makes more sense.
Thank you. Mr. Gibson isn't here. Jim, rec.
yes, the rec they're just gearing up for spring sports, t-ball, lacrosse, floor hockey, as well as summer camps. And then also a reminder to the folks, before and after school program registration is March 11th at 10 a.m. That is all.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey.
I have nothing to report.
Okay, as I said, the school board had their deliberative session. They concurred with the $24 million warrant article for their operating budget, plus a capital reserve account for, I forget the number, and then a new capital reserve account for a
Civics in
civics, yeah,
experience.
Thank you, civic community, $25,000. It's going to be on their budget, and they have one candidate for the one school board to re-elect the current school board members. Okay. Okay, public comment. This is the second comment. If you've made public comment already, you only have one shot. Any other person like to make public comment? Present?
You know, you want a shot?
Yes, you have one time, and you've taken it, I believe.
When you guys got that rule?
Several months ago. I'll read it again. Where did I'll quote it if I can. Each speaker shall be provided a single opportunity for comment. I'll limit it to 3 minutes. So, anyone else like to make public comment?
Okay, that's the same course of a night.
Yeah. That's
Is
the
it?
way we interpret it. Sure.
My name is Matt Amatucci. I live at 42 Juniper Lane in Barrington.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to thank the board for the renaming of Sergeant Way. That is very important to the family. They wanted Sergeant Way. They didn't want Cheryl Way. For privacy reasons. This is what Quinn wanted, his son. So I appreciate that. And my only question would be, what is the next step as far as the process and timeframe? I don't know much about the process.
It's a good question. Happy to answer if the select board wishes. It's administrative from here. So the select board has the authority to name and rename roads. That's the decision they made tonight. And so we'll go through a process now, get the information to the town clerk's office. She'll get it up to the Department of Transportation to have it officially updated. And we'll take other administrative steps to reach out to the residents again on Gooseneck Lane and work with the highway department to update signs and things like that. But I think in this specific case, we got to work with you or the family to formalize a process and a ceremony. I know the select board talked about something to describe the Sergeant Way name. And so I think we'll take a few additional steps in this case, and we can work on that offline.
Sure. Yeah, if I could just leave my contact is like the liaison for the family.
Okay,
Perfect.
thank you.
Absolutely.
Point of order, parliamentary, your notes tonight, your agenda tonight on public comments speaks of 2 public comment sessions, and it does not define that there's a restriction to one person making one public comment.
As I said, each speaker should be provided a single opportunity for comment.
You changed that, Mr. Chairman.
No, it's right here, right here. It's been in this thing for a long time. I didn't say anything.
Oh, what a tangle web we practice to see, Sir Walter Scott.
Thank you.
Don't prosecute me, Mr. Chairman, for breaking the rules.
I'm not going to prosecute you for anything. We're trying to appropriate comment on this. You had a chance to comment earlier.
But I was given always in the past, and this management down. So I encourage people to vote.
Yes, thank you.
Then I encourage people to go to the library, give them a chance, let them hear their plan. I mean, you guys don't make a judgment.
All right, a motion to go to non-public section.
Oh, yeah, no public.
I'd like to make a motion
Good
to
luck
add
on it.
public comment.
There's a motion to go to non-public for personnel.
Second.
Second, all those in favor, Mr. Scotia?
Do we want to close public comment first?
No, we're going on, we've already closed that. We're
Oh,
moving
I
on.
didn't hear that, so my bad.
So you want to move to non-public? Is that what your
I would
motion
like to
was?
make a motion to move to non-public.
Thank you.
I second it.
Seconded, Mr. Bailey, second. Your vote, Mr. Scotia?
Aye.
Capella?
Aye.
Bailey, aye, Mantrick, aye. Can we, have, can supposed to be
You're live.
Okay, we've just voted to return to public session from a non-public session. We have a motion to not seal the minutes, I guess. We don't even have to have a motion for that, do we?
Don't need a motion.
Okay, how would anybody like to adjourn the meeting?
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Mr. Bailey, second from Ms. Capiello.
Scotia,
Voice
Aye.
Bailey, aye.
vote. Mancheck, no? No, I'll vote aye. Change that. Aye. Guys have it.
Thanks, Jim. Bye.
Thanks,
Yep.
Jen.
See you guys.
Good night.